Enjoy local voices. Enjoy local opinions. All on one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast DC is the new local app with hundreds of DC area podcasts, featuring some of the DC area's best personalities, pundits, and provocateurs. Earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts you love instantly. With new programs being added every week, don't hesitate. Download Podcast DC now for free. Available in the App Store or in Google Play. Podcast DC. Listen local.
Say It Loud Network presents Corner Table Talk.
Well, welcome everyone to this episode of Corner Table Talk. You know, today, as I prepared for my guest, the inspiration to do a podcast encompassing food plus drink plus culture became even more clear to me. The thing about having spent so many nights in restaurants is the benefit, the good fortune to have met some fascinating people from all walks of life. And now being able to, in some cases, decades later, walk back through some of our collective journey. Today's show captures every bit of that sentiment. John Hope Bryant, by way of formal introduction, is an American entrepreneur and philanthropist who has built more than 40 organizations, entities, and companies, including Operation HOPE, which is the largest nonprofit financial inclusion organization in the country. And that's saying something. And the Promise Homes Company, the largest for-profit, institutional quality, minority-controlled owner of single-family rental real estate in the country. That's also saying something. But on a personal note, John is my friend of over 25 years. To say that I, along with the folks who on many afternoons in the mid-90s gathered at tables in Los Angeles in the haze of the trauma-inducing events post-Rodney King, trying to coalesce around ideas about what we as young concerned citizens could do, what we should do with our collective desire to address issues. John, to say that we are proud of how far you have taken this conversation would be a massive understatement, but I'm going to say it anyway. Brother, we are so proud of you. And I say that for our collective body of friends back in Los Angeles and around the country.
Oh,
Thank you, sir.
Man. And thanks for making me officially cool, Brad Johnson. You were the first person that made me even like parallel to the word cool. I was definitely a dork. I was definitely just like that business guy working around with a briefcase and a suit on in Compton, California at 10, 11, 12 years old. You allowed me to come into what used to be called George's, one of your many beautiful achievements and creations, and you embraced me. And first of all, to have this iconic figure in Los Angeles who is the epitome, in my opinion, of cool, and I say cool, I don't mean like some soft soap, vain, thin analogy of looks and vibe and whatever. I'm talking about cool philosophically. I'm talking about cool in the sense that he's a high frequency thinker. I'm talking about cool in the sense that he is talking without words. He's talking with energy. I'm talking about cool because he's inclusive of everybody in the room. I'm talking about cool because he's smart as a whip. and he made smart sexy long before that was in vogue. That to me is cool. When you see everybody in the room and you see them for their collective and individual value, even though maybe in that moment they were not the identity of what people thought was shallowly defined as cool. That didn't cross your mind. I mean, at all. I mean, you didn't care who anybody thought about who you were sitting with. They were your friend or somebody you were interested in, period. And I joke about it, but I'm serious. I mean, my last book, Up From Nothing, The Untold Story of How We All Succeed, is a lot about giving people courage, Brad, because this world is cruel, man. And if your identity and self-esteem is defined by how somebody else treats you or whether you are in vogue or cool, you'll be devastated on a daily basis. Luckily, that was not one of my problems. But I did not necessarily find people who understood me back then. I didn't care, right? I'm sorry, I cared a little, actually. I don't care now. I did care a little back then. That's why I'm making this point. But how much time I wasted and people waste worrying about somebody's view of them that doesn't really matter, right? And sort of paying attention to the noise, right? and it's all it is noise. What you find out in hindsight is that none of it mattered, right? And those people often didn't matter. And many of those people are asking me for jobs and contracts and hookups now. Or as I like to say, there's no ugly billionaires, right? But you just were unique, man. And you continue that today, defining. I mean, how many restaurateurs are doing podcasts? I mean, you just redefine the game. You drive around in a classic Mercedes, not the newest, whatever. You got the classic top down, black Marlin Brando Benz. I just like the way you flow. I like the way you roll. I like the way you love. I like the way you friendship. And for that, you've got a friend for life. Like anybody mess with Brad Johnson, got to mess with me first.
You know how much I appreciate that, man. And I tell you, John, the affirmation, you're absolutely right. As we get older, I think we hopefully care less about what people think about us and we stay focused on whatever our mission is. But I tell you, man, the affirmation that you get from people that do matter, when they say the things and they affirm the things that you want to believe that you represent, it means the world. So I wanted to just say thank you for those kind words of yours. And I wanted to also acknowledge that John is a best-selling author, as he referred to his book Up From Nothing, which is out now. I've read a couple of his books, and the last one that I read was the Memo, 5 Rules for Your Economic Liberation. And I'll tell you, while it was kind of a basic how-to, even at my age, and I just read it recently, I'd read one of his books, How the Poor Can Save Capitalism, many years ago when it first came out. But this book, I think you wrote it in 2016 or 17. It still resonated with me, even though there was some pretty simple philosophy. So I want to get to that. But John, what we do with this show is we start off with what I call short order questions. So these are just a couple of things to kind of get your take and not meant to strain your brain too quickly, too fast. So here we go. So John, tell me, man, what's in heavy rotation on your playlist these days? What are you listening to?
Literally whatever is on the radio. I love music and I love all kinds of music as long as it's good quality. But this sort of goes back to what I was saying earlier, like, I'm just consciously oblivious of most things around me. I'm not oblivious. I'm consciously oblivious. Like, I can only focus on but so much quality thought processes at a time. Your brain can only hold so much quality information and process it. Mm-hmm. So I just, people talking noise, mess, whatever, extraneous. I don't make my money or build my wealth on music or on sports or whatever. So those things are just extra for me. Mm-hmm. And they soothe my soul. They cascade over me like a warm blanket on a rainy Sunday afternoon. But then they warm me like a fireplace, but they don't divide me. So
it's supplemental to your day, not central.
Yeah, it's not identifying. I do listen to my boys. My boy, I love my friend, Howard Hewitt. I listen to him all the time. My boy, Killer Mike, friend of mine, I listen to him all the time. So I listen to my friends, T.I., he's a friend of mine. I listen to his stuff. It's Quincy Jones, he's a mentor of mine. I listen to his stuff. So if you have a personal relationship with me or I with you, I tend to have an affection, an affinity that draws me closer to that music. And there's more of a relationship to it than just hearing something generically. So I'll put that, if you want to call that, if you want to think it's on the rotation, you can count the fact that those who I have a relationship with are on rotation more than those who are not.
Tell me, John, the time of day that you feel most productive.
That's a great question. It depends. So right now is my left brain time of day. This is my premier time for creation. That's why I've got a multi-channel workstation where I can work on 8 things at one time, and 3 more stations here on my desk. Probably, and then like 5 to 8 is transition time. 9 is about dinner time. And then I guess my best time of the day is 10 p.m. to 1 in the morning, because that's my time. That's when I do whatever I want to do. Get on a racing simulator and practice. I have a competitive auto racing license, or go play video games. People don't know that about me. I don't go to the gym at night because that's not enjoyable. I do it in the morning. But, sit and watch documentaries or movies with the family, go to the theater. So that's my time. 10 p.m. to 1 in the morning is where I feed the right side of my brain. That's the creative side. The left side of my brain, the analytical side, is like, 9 to 9 every day. And I love both sides, but One is gas and one is fuel. The gas is during the day. I get refueled at night.
That's great, man. John is also clairvoyant among his other many skills because he just mentioned his interest in racing. And that was actually my next question alludes to that. So tell me, John, top speed you've hit on the track and what were you driving?
Oh, that's great questions. I've done, I think, a $190. What was I driving? It might have been the Ford Shelby GT350R, my official track car. I've done 170 in a Ferrari 488. Once you get above, 150, they all feel the same. Either you have a good experience or you don't.
Right.
I have driven everything under the sun. It's got 4 wheels on it. There's downforce cars, which I've driven and run races in South Africa and in Europe. There's GT cars, which I tend to like the most because it required, if you're going around a corner in a GT car, a 10-top, a car that you and I recognize, you're doing it. It's not the design of the car that's doing it. You're doing it. I've driven open wheel cars. I love, Brad, I love it because, you can't BS in a race car. You can't, it doesn't care about who you are, your ego, your whatever. You can't multitask. You can't go to the golf course. You can pull a mobile phone, talk mess, whatever. You can't do any of that. You got to multitask in the car. And it's like Buddhism at 150 miles an hour. You got to really calm yourself. The faster I go, the calmer I get. Because smooth is fast. And you can't think about going around that corner. You think about it, you've already passed the corner. Yeah, you're in the dirt, the gravel, or the wall. It has to be intuitive. And the track connects with the tires, which connect to the wheel, which connects to the mainframe and the brakes or the accelerator, your foot, and all that translates up to your butt and into your system. And you gotta be in one way. It's almost somewhere between either sexual or spiritual. And I don't mean sexual in a nasty way. I mean, it is in a way that's sensual. It is a sensual experience. And it's the only sport I've ever been elegant at.
It's funny that you mentioned the elegance of it. I attended the Grand Prix in Long Beach a few years ago, and I was taken by the glamour of the event. I mean, it gets very loud, and you put on your headphones or whatever. But there's a glamour, and there's just an awesomeness to the power that you're watching on the track, and the gracefulness with which you have to operate those vehicles. There's a lot going on there, and I really, really enjoyed it. All right, tell me, John. It's a night out in Atlanta. Where are you going for dinner and what are you having? Let's assume that the pandemic is allowing folks to socialize freely. Tell me about one of your spots and something you like on that menu.
I'm going wherever my wife tells me that won't irritate me. So I'm unlike you. I'm about who I'm with, not what I'm eating. Like you're the creator of the experience. I don't know, 20 restaurants I remember in the world are yours. And I've been 100 countries. I do meals every day because it's business, but I typically don't remember the experience. I'm vibing on who I'm with and what I'm just extracting or pouring into that person. And I just hope the food doesn't irritate me. I was in the Bahamas, food irritated me all 4 or 5 days. They overcharged me and underserved me in quality because Brad Johnson wasn't there. But if I was going someplace in Atlanta, to answer your question, and if it wasn't just where my wife was saying go, Shatra, me and her and Ambassador Young and Carolyn going out tomorrow night, we just got that confirmation today. But it'll probably be the Garden Room at the St. Regis. That is, I think, the sexiest location, the most elegant, high-frequency location. You walk in there, you think you're in France. It's got foliage and trees inside and flowers and smell and feel. It's got all your right brain senses. It's love on steroids. But they've created this ecosystem, this environment, this culture where you're stepping into another world. If you want quiet, you want to read a book, you can do that in a corner. There's a bar, an open bar, but it's not a disgusting bar. It's an open source, almost feng shui in France sort of a situation where energy flows. There's no breaking of the energy. And people are there meeting each other and building relationships. If you want to take your mother there or your wife or your girlfriend or whatever, it's something for everybody. It's intimate while also being open and it's elegant without being snooty. It is part of the St. Regis, but it is a separate entity of the St. Regis. And It was hidden for a long time. I happen to know the owners, so they allow us to go in there when we want to. But it's opening up more and more now. If you come to Atlanta, try to go to the St. Regis. Atlanta is such a special place, Brad. It's thank God, there's a lot of really cool places to go if that's your thing.
I love that, man. Thank you. So last one of these, John, who past or present would you most like to host at an intimate dinner party?
My boy, TD Jakes. What's really great is that we're really close friends now, but we actually became much closer during the pandemic, which means I haven't seen him. So I knew Bishop TD Jakes and we were friendly, but we became boys. Friends, like 2 a.m. Again, it's my 1, 2 a.m. thing. We talk, text at 1, 2 a.m. because he's off duty and so am I. Now it's just 2 guys talking. And the only thing would be better is both of us sitting at a Brad Johnson restaurant. Plan on doing. We just traded messages. Hey, man, we got to get together. Like we got to, hug each other and commune. I'd like to host a dinner party for him. I think he's a step above. We just hosted a party for Ambassador Young and Carolyn for their wedding anniversary. He is, I think, the closest thing we got to Nelson Mandela in the world today. He won't really be recognized for his true contributions until he unfortunately is gone. You know who he is, Dr. King's right arm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The guy who made Atlanta ambassador.
And one of your primary mentors.
Yeah, so we just hosted him last weekend. TD Jakes just hit me, top of my list. I'd love to do something for Quincy Jones only because I just think he does something for everybody else. And I think I know a different side of Quincy. So I'd love to do that for a lot of reasons that probably won't happen. But Desmond Tutu, it's our heroes and our sheroes that I want the world to know that you're standing on tall shoulders. But I just want to give back to those who made my life possible.
I have a feeling that at that dinner party, you could just keep adding chairs and each guest would be distinguished in their own right. And that'd be a fascinating dinner party to be part of. So let's dive in here, John. And thanks again, man. I know you're incredibly busy. I really appreciate you taking the time. So I want to ask you how you've handled the challenges. You started to allude to the fact that you're closing a bunch of deals, and I've seen, a few of those announced recently, and they're very impressive. But with all that has gone on, man, this last, 12 to 15 months, and you can take any part of that from, the protests around police brutality, George Floyd, Donald Trump, the pandemic, any part of that. And this has been an unprecedented year. And not to mention, as a native Angelino, the fact that 2020 started off with the tragic death of Kobe Bryant, his daughter, and the other folks on that helicopter, which was devastating, for us, I think for anybody that can relate to losing someone that they feel that they know, even if they might not know them personally. But I'm just really curious, John, how you have handled personally and professionally the challenges of the last 12 months, 15 months.
Don't waste a moment. Don't waste a moment in stupid conversations, arguing with people who are acting stupid, trying to prove your point to somebody who doesn't have a point, being an expert in what you're against and the world hooked on what it's for. You gotta get your mindset right, man. You gotta get your head right. I mean, if you didn't have your head right coming into 2020, you're depressed right now. You're depressed, you're distressed, you're lost, you have no sense of purpose, you're angry maybe, you're frustrated. A lot of people, this crisis, this, if you didn't really like your mate, I had a friend of a friend told me he actually didn't know what his wife looked like until this pandemic. Like he even married to her, I guess she wore makeup to bed. I'm not kidding. Like he spent so much time during it was like the first time he looked at her really, in years since they were dating. That's really sad. But I think that we were going in different directions. We were, I got this appointment, whatever. I think God set us down. The God said, hey, slow down. This is not what I intended. This may be what you intended. It's not what I intended. So everybody, but to your point, Brad, the George Floyd, public lynching, because of the pandemic, we all were sitting down, girls and boys, black and white, millionaire, billionaires. Am I trying to buy some air? Liberal, Republican, Democrat, urban, rural, college students who don't watch the news, right? Everybody was forced to sit down and watch this 8.5-minute public lynching. Any other time, oh man, what did you hear about that thing? What thing? Oh, I got a meeting. Tell me about it later. People were just too busy. But God set us down, man. Worst pandemic since the Spanish flu. 400-year-old social justice reckoning of Black America. Worst economic crisis for unemployment since the Great Depression. Worst challenge of our democracy since 1812 when the British stormed the Capitol. This time it was Americans storming the Capitol against other Americans. All that happened within 6 to 8 months. 35 on the back end of that, rainbows after storms, because you cannot have a rainbow without a storm first. $35 billion committed by the private sector, not the government, the private sector for social justice, primarily for Black folks, which hopefully get to this third Reconstruction period. But it became crystal clear to me, man, that we're sitting in a moment in history. But history doesn't feel historic when you're sitting in it. It just feels like another day. And everything that I've been saying that people were rolling their eyes for 20 years, oh, John Hope Bryant, oh, financial literacy, oh, capitalism, oh, I'm just so tired of hearing this guy. It's like, people are like, boom, like, what are you talking about again? Can you repeat what you said? Where do I get that video? I mean, it didn't matter who you were dealing with some crap in March and April of 2020. Your whole life fell apart. My billionaire friends were worried that their stuff was going to go to zero. For a minute, they actually gained more wealth in 2020 than any time probably in their professional career, because if you were digital and connected, the economy actually disconnected, Brad. You had the investor economy that took off and the workforce economy got stuck, and we're still disconnected. And that's a problem I'm trying to solve right now with my work, which hopefully we'll get to. But everything I've been saying, preaching, talking about that had been blown off, dismissed, whatever, came into technicolor focus in the first 4 months of 2020. I went on Gayle King's show, my website crashed. Those weren't Black people. Those were white people going, I got too much month at the end of my money. Like, I'm arguing with my wife. My restaurant's closed down. Like, I need help. So my services went through the roof at Operation Hope. Everything that I had learned, known, or prepared for was called into service. And it was no time to sleep. I just had to be very clear-eyed, very focused, and just keep it every day. Hit it. I never worked harder in my life. March of 2020 to basically a month ago.
Yeah, I went back and watched one of your, I think it was from 2016, a sit down that you had with Van Jones, and just what you were saying now, John, at Ferguson had just happened. And I think you had just visited Ferguson, and some of the same issues that you just alluded to, you were speaking of then. And, and unfortunately we have seen, some of the same, the outcome of those same circumstances continue to play themselves out. For folks who might not know enough about John, I just wanted to put into context what John has been able. This to me, John, was one of the accolades that I think that I was most happy to see, and that was the Smithsonian Museum. Operation Hope became a permanent part of the Smithsonian, which is the African-American Museum in DC, on April 15, 2019. And the city of Atlanta, City Council in the city of Atlanta, where John currently lives, proclaimed April 15th John Hope Bryant Day. I just think that's so cool, man, and so deserving. Because you have multiple business interests, John, and multiple companies. I know you consider yourself an entrepreneur and a philanthropist. Those are kind of the two titles up front. But I don't even think that really hits the entire picture. Would you mind just kind of describing your mission and just what John Hope Bryant is all about, and take that wherever you want to take that?
I'm a relay racer, Brad. No different than you're a relay racer. You're your dad's child and your grandfather's legacy, and you've talked to me about that long lineage and how you in many ways keep that alive, and you're pouring into your lineage also to make them the best they can be. I'm a relay racer, and I think that we're in a third Reconstruction right now. I think that I'm trying to take us from civil rights to civil rights, from protests in the streets to business deals in the business suites, from a color of black and white and red and blue to a color of green, to make free enterprise work for all of God's children. I have a four-part mission. One is I want to create an economic ecosystem and infrastructure that's rebootable, scalable, and sustainable for Black America. It doesn't exist. It's never existed. We are a $1.4 trillion consumer spending force, but all we do is spend. really. And when you think about our Jewish brothers and sisters and how they survived the Holocaust, they had 5 pillars of success before the Holocaust and 5 pillars afterwards. As much education as they could shove down their throat. They understood financial literacy, the math, how wealth creation, money works. By the way, there's a difference between making money and building wealth. Big difference, huge difference. Our community tends to obsess on, I want to get that paper. I want to make that money. I want to get paid. How do I get this dollar? It's immediacy. It's today. Money is overrated. It's a means of transacting value, and it has velocity. If you are dumb as 2 nails, it will come in your hands and roll right through it and go to somebody else. And you're going to invest in depreciating assets like jewelry versus investing in appreciating assets like real estate, right? Or a business, as you have done. And you build wealth in your sleep. Please, anybody listening to this, you want to dismiss everything I'm saying, please listen to this. You only build wealth in your sleep. That's it. It's compounding. Real estate, stocks, bonds, education, rental income, I can go on and on and on. So 1, they got the math. The message on math and how the wealth creation works, my Jewish brothers. Number 3 is family structure and resiliency. Number 4, self-esteem and confidence. Those 2 things are different. You can have high confidence and still have very low self-esteem. This is a problem in the Black community that is huge. This is why folks, in my opinion, would dismiss and player hate me coming up. Because if anybody, by the way, anybody's listening to this right now and going, that John Hope, that Brad John, who do they think they are? Guess what? You have a problem we don't. We don't know you. We've done nothing to you. You should be saying, everybody should be going, bravo. Everybody listens, bravo. God bless you, Brad Johnson. God bless you, John O'Brien. You're doing something that's advancing. Let me take a page out of that book. Anybody who has anything but a positive view in their mind right now, you got to check yourself. And so low self-esteem was designed by slavery and slaveholders to destroy you, to destroy your spirit so you wouldn't fight back in a way that was most effective. We fought back with our hands. You really should be fighting back with your mindset. That's my last book, Up From Nothing. So number 3, we have confidence, which comes from competence. So you can be competent at something and that gives you confidence. That doesn't mean you have high self-esteem. Most dangerous person in the world, person with no hope. Second most dangerous person in the world, somebody with power, wealth, confidence, low self-esteem, fear, and insecurities. We will not name names, but there's a public figure we could probably draw a circle around right now that fits that circle completely. Hitler was that person. There's people today that fit that profile. That is a malignant narcissist. Now, number 4, so that's number 4. Number 5 is role models and environment. So what does role modeling mean? You model what you see. What is environment? If you hang around 9 broke people, you'll be the 10th. So the people who've been massively successful in this country were attracted here because they're type A and they wanted freedom on steroids. That's why we're the biggest economy in the world. Those who were brought here and denied those 5 things, those basically is Native American Indians, poor whites, and African Americans. Not Nigerian Americans, not Brazilian Africans, not African South Africans, not African Rwandans, not African Ethiopians, African Americans. That's why we have a different reality. And they come here and kill it in 3 or 4 years, and we're being killed. Right? And unfortunately, what's worse, we're killing ourselves and each other. That's low self-esteem. If I don't like me, I'm not going to like you. If I don't feel good about me, I'm not going to feel good about you. If I don't love me, don't expect me to love you. And if I don't have a purpose in my life, I'll make your life a living hell. Whatever goes around, comes around. So solving the spiritual death issue, the spiritual poverty issue is number 1 on my personal list. I spent my whole life on that journey, getting comfortable in my own skin, reasonably comfortable in my own skin. You're that way, I believe. So here's my 4th thing, building that economic system I just mentioned for Black America, cultivating the bottom 50% of our economy, which includes poor whites, refining them, nurturing them, getting them tuned up to participate in the economy and getting them into the game so that we can add 2 to 3% of GDP, gross domestic product, to the economy. So we're not looking for charity anymore. We're looking for reinvestment from the bottom of the pyramid. Number 3 is becoming America's financial coach. That's work of Operation HOPE. Number 4, and we're the largest in the country. And number 4, I have 1,200 offices under contract with Operation HOPE, largest by far of any nonprofit in the country. And number 4 is becoming a conscience on capitalism, which is what you see me doing on Squawk Box and my books and all that stuff. So in that way, we're a relay racer from civil rights leaders in the 60s, who are relay racers on civil justice leaders after Civil War, and it goes on, it goes on, it goes on. I see myself as nothing more but a relay racer for this economic conversation, social justice through an economic lens. And if I leave this earth, and that's all I do, is those four things, or even one or two of those four things, I've done my part.
Those statistics that you kind of rattle off quickly and toss to the side are accomplishments of yours, man, that I think are just, really amazing what you've been able to build. But I want to stay on just for a moment. And so much of what you say, John, is applicable regardless of race,
of course,
gender.
Yeah.
It's not black, it's not white. But I want to speak specifically about our situation, and that is the black condition. Because, I think people shudder a bit when they start to think, oh, he's just talking about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, that whole thing. That's so not what you're saying. You are actually unpacking the trauma and replacing that trauma with the building blocks that weren't there.
Right.
And I just would like you, because I thought the thing that you really zeroed in on a few years ago, which was just so brilliant, man, was the credit score, right? And I know you talked about that a lot, but I just think for some people that have never had that thought, it's such a paradigm shift, right? Your credit score. Do you mind just kind of staying in that lane for a minute?
Yeah. So, people go, oh, John, credit score. Are you telling me that credit score has something to do with social justice? Yes. I mean, George Floyd was murdered in a 500 credit score neighborhood. 100%, Brad, of the unfortunate shootings in neighborhood, meaning where they live, of blacks by police are and have been in 500 credit score neighborhoods. It's not happening in my neighborhood, right? And I don't know where you live. It may not be happening in your neighborhood because the consequences are too high. 100%, if you want to talk about where all the drugs, the homicides, the black on black crime, or whatever, white on white crime, I don't care, whatever is negative, you'll find it in a 500 credit score neighborhood. Let me be visual for you. A check casher next to a payday loan lender, next to a rent-to-own store, next to a title lender, next to a pawn shop, next to a liquor store, next with a church down the street, which is the public therapist. Because we won't admit we're crazy, all right? Try and make you feel better once a week. We're going there hooping and hollering, oh, hallelujah, hallelujah. We're just trying to get it out of our system so we don't kill somebody and go back to work on Monday. That's called therapy, right? And we should go see a shrink because we're all a little nuts. And if you don't admit you're nuts, you probably really are nuts.
Traumatized.
Yeah,
we're traumatized.
We're suffering from massive PTSD, and anybody else dealing with what we're dealing with would just be crazy. I mean, we've been doing so much with so little for so long, we can almost do anything with nothing. The fact that there are black billionaires, and the fact there's a whole generation of a population of successful African-American people, given what we've been dealing with for 400 years, shows we are some bad somethings, right? And just imagine if we didn't spend all that energy fighting a negative, but put that energy into, to me, I love math because it does not have an opinion. Putting that same energy into being positive, right? Imagine what we could do, Brad. We'd be unstoppable, which is why I believe folks have tripped us up and created. If you came to America in the 1619s, you're big like you, my size, maybe even. They would hold us back and abuse our wives in front of us until we stop fighting. What's the point? You can't do nothing about it. And they're not trying to break our bodies. They need our bodies. We were wealthier. We were worth more than railroads and manufacturing combined in the 1840s. The wealthiest city in the world in 1840 was Natchez, Mississippi. The first millionaire came out of financing cotton in New York City. The cotton came from us. The first millionaire in wealth in America came from us. But in order to have us not take over the situation, you had to break our spirit, not our bodies. They needed our bodies. We were traded, insured, financed, underwritten by insurance companies, by banks, right? With the absolute assurance of the federal government. This was an industry. This was a massive global industry. The largest reverse transfer of wealth in American history were black slaves. Right? So, but they had to destroy our spirit. So that's what they did. They broke up our families. It's the reverse of those 5 pillars of success I mentioned to you. Denied you education, denied you the math, broke up your families, broke up your spirit, devastated your self-esteem, gave you crappy role models, gave you a crappy environment. I mean, Andrew Young would say this: to live in a system of free enterprise and not to understand the rules of free enterprise must be the very definition of slavery. Boom, drop the mic. So I've said this: there's never been a riot in a 700 credit score neighborhood in American history, ever. Ever, right? Ever. Because 700 credit score communities don't riot, they go shopping, right? There's only riot in 500 credit score neighborhoods. That's where Operation was built, born, South Central LA in a 500 credit score neighborhood. If you want to change America, and your people will laugh when I say this, but hold on, move your neighborhood's credit score 100 points. It's not about the credit score. It's about the trending indicators that represents: hope, well-being, engagement, education, two-parent households that proliferate, the mindset shifts from surviving to thriving and winning. The largest countries in the world, biggest GDPs, gross domestic product, have the most patents. All a patent is a monetized idea. It is. But if you're in war, if you're in battling every day for your life, are you creating some amazing new frying pan for the kitchen, or some cooling system, or venting system for the back office of a restaurant? No, you're trying to figure out how to not get shot on the way home. So in some ways, this game we've been playing of defense is an extension of the trauma of slavery. And it's keeping us, again, it's the noise. It's the noise. And folks, what did Malcolm X say? We've been bamboozled. We've been tricked. We've been fooled. You know what's beautiful about a credit score, Brad? You can control it. I can't control how somebody else feels about me. I can't control whether you like me, respect me, love me or not. Let me tell you what Quincy Jones said. Not one ounce of my self-esteem and self-worth is defined on your acceptance of me. What did Reverend Murray say right there in LA, in Los Angeles? First Lady Church, Rodney King riots. It's not what people call you. It's what you answer to that's important. And never, ever, ever answer out of your name. And then I added, to argue with a fool proves there are two. Where does that self-esteem come from if it didn't come from your family? If your mother was working 3 jobs, wasn't there, your dad wasn't there, where does that self-esteem come from? It has to come from your culture, your tribe, or it has to come from a culture that you grew up in or you adopt. A credit score is a culture. It's a culture. And a high credit score is a culture of success. Where do Whole Foods go? 700 credit score neighborhoods. Where do Starbucks go? 700 credit score neighborhoods. I mean, it's no mistake that these retailers...
And to your point, John, as an employer of young people, I can also tell you that when you care about your credit score, you also care about keeping your word. So you will show up for work.
It is your word.
There's so many things that start to fall in line with just that basic practice. It's much more, what you lay out is just much more instructive than the general idea of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps.
Credit comes from the Latin word credito, which basically is credibility, which is what you're just talking about. It's your credibility.
It's everything.
The word capital comes from the Latin root word capitas, which means knowledge in the head. It has nothing to do with money. You see, we're just looking for love in all the wrong places. Again, Malcolm X said it. We've been bamboozled. We've been tricked. We've been fooled. It's like that movie, the red pill or the blue pill, right? Which one are you gonna take? All right. We've been taking the wrong pill, looking for love in all the wrong places, and aren't we sick and tired of being sick and tired? Mm-hmm. I mean, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. I'm just tired of us struggling when we should be winning.
So, John, a couple of topics here, and then I'm just going to turn it over to you. Take any one of them in any order that you like. But, you know, I know that you left Los Angeles several years ago. I'm curious as to what the motivation was behind that. Atlanta is your home. Atlanta and Georgia played a very prominent role in this past election. There's a trend that some are referring to is reverse migration. Now, I think you moved to Georgia way ahead of that as a pronounced trend, but I often make note on this show about Charles Blow, the New York Times columnist, who recently left Brooklyn with his family and moved to Atlanta. And I just heard him on a podcast the other day saying how he feels safe in Atlanta because there's so many Black policemen. And he just doesn't have the same feeling as he had in New York when he didn't see as many. So I'm curious about your feeling of, if any of that. But I also want to get to this fourth Reconstruction. So Take it away in any order.
Yeah. So I never answered this question for anybody. I've done hundreds and hundreds of interviews. No one's ever asked me the question, but you're so smart. You did. I'm happy to answer it for the first time. I would never have been me without Los Angeles. We don't have time for the story, but I chronicle it in my last book, if everybody's interested. But mom and dad came from East St. Louis. My mother came from East St. Louis. Dad was from Mississippi. My grandfather, born in 1871, R.B. Smith, was a farmer, probably a sharecropper. And my great-grandfather was absolutely a slave. And my father, as a show of prosperity, would drive back in that day when you bought a new car. If you really balling, you drove that car into Detroit and you went to the showroom in Detroit, got a new car, and drove it back to LA. And so my dad in the 60s, early 60s, drove to Detroit. I don't know how he ended up in East St. Louis, but was going through East St. Louis, met my mother by chance, fell in lust with her, and then in love with her. And my mom said, well, you got to move me 2,000 miles away from East St. Louis and with my kids. Otherwise, she dreamed, prophesied, I got to get 2,000 miles away from East St. Louis or I'm dead. Well, that just happened to be Los Angeles where my dad lived. So dad was like, cool, come on, let's go. So he turned his car around, never made it to Detroit, went back to LA, and I was born in Good Samaritan Hospital in Los Angeles, lived on what was Santa Barbara. It's now Martin Luther King Boulevard. And mom and dad owned a gas station at Normandy and Vernon, I think it is. It's still there, southeast corner, still there. We lost it. We own an apartment building on Martin Luther King Boulevard that was 8 units. We lost it. Bought it for $18,000, Brad. Would be worth millions and millions today. So the generational wealth from owning our own home, having a gas station, having all that stuff, we lost it all. So there's nothing asset-wise holding me there. Mom and dad divorced. I lived in Compton, South Central LA. I've been all over LA, Malibu, et cetera, et cetera. By the way, restaurants changed my life. I went to go work at Joffrey's. First of all, I went to go work at Gladstone's for Fish. And I took the bus from Compton to Gladstone's because I wanted to be an aspirational neighborhood. If I was going to work as a busboy, or a waiter.
I don't know if there are two more diametrically opposed neighborhoods.
Well, it gets even better. So, yeah. So, by the way, and I really want young people listening to you to get this memo. Like, I could have become a busboy at the Denny's in Compton or wherever, some other restaurant in South Central, but I wouldn't have had a different culture, a different exposure. People I was waiting on couldn't have done much for me. So I didn't have any relationship capital and I didn't have any financial capital, but I needed to acquire both. So I took a bus to Gladstone's for Fish, took a 5 a.m. shift in the morning as a busboy. I was a really bad busboy. 5 a.m. on Monday, that's the worst shift on the planet. And I quickly learned, well, these were accountants I'm waiting on and lawyers. That's cool, but I don't want to be an accountant or a lawyer. I want to be a baller. Where are the ballers at? Joffrey's Malibu. So I took a bus further up the coast. It's another, 30 minutes?
Yeah.
Up the coast. And to Joffrey's, got a job there as a busboy and ran into Harvey Basket and Joffrey Etienne. Harvey was worth $200 million, $1 billion today. He owned the restaurant. He'd given it to his partner, his lover, Joffrey Etienne, as a gift. Joffrey was this really handsome guy and a just beautiful dresser and really nice guy. Unfortunately, he's passed on. I met everybody there, but I became so close to Harvey, I went to go work for him as an assistant at his home, which used to be the Malibu train station on, I think it was Broad Beach Road. And I'm from Compton in South Central, Brad. I'm working in this dude's house that the house is big as an office building on the beach. And sure, he paid me nothing, $19,000, but I was getting paid in exposure.
Sure.
Every phone call that came in, I listened to. Mm-hmm. Every call he couldn't take, I took the message and talked to the baller on the other line. I listened to everything Harvey said. I took notes. This is not your question you're asking, but this is where my heart took me, and I'll answer the question about LA. So one day I said, Harvey, let me take you to dinner. Fine. So driving Miss Daisy, because he's broken his ankle, he's in the backseat of my then Audi. And I'm driving him down the close highway. And I didn't care what it looked like. So we go to this restaurant in Venice. Don't remember the name of it. You would know. And we have dinner. Bill comes. It's $100. Back then, call it $500 to me. I'm like, I pushed the bill to Harvey. Harvey pushes the bill back to me. I said, you must be out your damn mind. You're the rich. I push the bill back to Harvey. He pushes it back to me. I go to push it back. He said, stop, John. He said, you got to decide what you want. You want to pick my brain or pick my pocket? One lasts longer.
Can't be both.
Now make a decision. Can't be both. I pulled the bill back, Brad, took the last $100 I had, other than the money for gas to get back home, at Malibu, paid the bill, shut my mouth, and I asked him every question that was on my mind from that moment till I got back, because he was going to get distracted when I got him back home. I had him captive, this basically billionaire. And that's my whole life, like being curious, nosy, sticking my nose in, asking questions, and paying the price to show up, right? Yeah. And not go buy a stereo, not go buy some clothes, some jewelry. No, it's a plane ticket to DC for a 15-minute meeting. It's taking somebody to dinner who actually might change my life. It's going to take the bus to some place where if I worked there and had the right opportunity, whole life could change. So that was my LA gift, because there's no such thing as failure in LA. It's just reset. Like history in LA is 2 years old, right? Nobody remembers your failures. Nobody cares, actually, right? So everybody concerned about themselves. So the thing that caused me to move is I made a little money, I was successful, had a condo on La Tierra at the airport, right at La Tierra in the 405, had, success by LA standards. But I didn't know my neighbor. And I wasn't convinced if I knocked on my neighbor's door that they would answer the door. I wasn't quite sure if my car was stopped on the side of the freeway, that somebody with ill intentions would stop to help me. But that wasn't it. That wasn't the defining factor. It was that when I went to a event at one of the studios, and there was like Ethiopian food, and Ethiopian culture, and it was beautiful, it was gorgeous. When I started talking about Ethiopian hunger, the model next to me said, "Oh, what are you talking about? What time is that party at Brad Pitt's house?" Right? They were gone. So the conversation I was trying to have wasn't really conducive or desirous, because LA is about, it's beautiful weather, it's palm trees, it's beautiful, it's creative, it's perfect for what it is. And I'd gone there, checked that box, checked that ticket, bought the t-shirt, but now I wanted to move. There's a reason why the writers and intellectuals and DC and capital and money is all east, is because the weather is crappy east. So folks for hundreds of years had to go inside. They couldn't go outside, so they were reading books. Whereas in California, it's palm trees and beauty, and so you're outside enjoying it, and so your creativity spurs. That's why all the creative genius is on the West Coast. I wanted something deeper at that point, and I wanted to talk about civil rights and justice and opportunity and movement. So Ambassador Young told me he said, come to Atlanta. I remember one day we met with the mayor. I won't say which one. And at the mayor's request, I brought Andrew Young because he wanted him. He made me sit on the floor, wouldn't give me a seat, which was a sign of disrespect. It's fine. And in his office. And when we left, Ambassador Young said, he thinks you want to run against him. Every black politician or Latino probably thinks you're only doing all this stuff because you want to run against them. They're not going to help you. He said, a prophet is only without honor in his own hometown. He said, in Atlanta, they called Dr. King Marty, ML, Michael, which was his birth name. They wouldn't give him respect. He was 5'7", 150 pounds, 160 pounds. They called him a kid. He said, that's why they call him Dr. King. Staff gave him some gravitas, called him Dr. King. He said, John, you got to come to Atlanta, come back to LA as an honored citizen. So I moved, and my whole life changed. So I think it's horses for courses. It's places for phases. I love LA.
Places for phases.
Yeah, I love LA. It was just I was in a different phase of my life. My wealth skyrocketed when I came here. Financially, I'm the largest owner of single-family rental homes in America today, who's a minority. I own $110 million worth of real estate, 700 homes from Atlanta to Florida to our people at affordable housing rates. But I started that company in 2017. I owned nothing before that. And I'm about to buy 50 more next month. The average home value here, Brad, is 100. I bought it from 80,000. Now worth 180,000. I'm going to keep buying until they get to 300,000. You can't buy a closet in LA for $150,000. This is a single family home, front yard, backyard, garage, yard, 1,400 square feet for your family. You can be middle class at $50,000 a year here and be balling. And so I just think that this is where wealth creation is going to get created for our people, is the Southeast. The New York money's already made, Manhattan. It's already made. LA money's already made. All right, you can floss there, but you're not going to build legitimate wealth there. So I'll come to LA and spend my money, but I'm making my money here and building.
I mean, that says so much about you too, John, and that, recognizing, what was real. I mean, LA, I would never put Los Angeles down. I love it. I'm a native New Yorker, but I'm proud to say that I've had some great years in Los Angeles and it served me well. Yeah. But I think it says a lot about you to be willing to kind of put that life aside for something that spoke more to the spirit and your quest and your mission. And that's what you did. And obviously it was a good move for you. Mm-hmm.
Brad, I own 13 acres, 15 minutes from the airport. I'm going to repeat that. My family and I live on, we call it country chic. We live on a 13-acre compound, 15 minutes from the busiest airport in the world. Where is that possible? Where? It's not, where? No place in America. So this is another example. Just the stuff that I could do here, I just couldn't do anyplace else. I certainly couldn't do it in Southern California, unless, I spent $50 million and maybe get 13 acres someplace. But while I was buying it and rehabbing it, it was going up in value here in Atlanta, right? It's not going down, it's going up, right? My homes are literally increasing in wealth when I'm sleeping. Mm-hmm. Like listen to me, everybody. When you can buy a $100,000 house, a $200,000 house, until that gets to $500,000, it's called a bargain, right? So either you want to stay in LA, great, but buy 3 homes in Atlanta or Tennessee or any of these second-tier growing cities, because Atlanta today is the 10th largest economy in the U.S. It's the largest economy in the South, the only international city in the South, one of the 20 largest economies in the world. If it was a country, it'd be the 31st largest economy in the world behind Norway. Atlanta, built by Black people and white people working together on the green. So I think we gotta, stop just reading the newspaper about what's cool and spending money we don't have in places that don't want us, with about things that don't matter, in places we don't own, really paying off somebody else's mortgage. And that's living in Manhattan and renting, that's living in Buckhead here in Atlanta and renting. It's renting anywhere. You paid off my mortgage as an investor. Mm-hmm. The third reconstruction is really about this historic moment I think we're in now between 2020 and 2030. It's 400-year social justice reckoning of Black America. It's social justice through an economic lens. There's never been a time, if you're Black, responsible, hardworking, and intelligent, you standing in a bus stop right now and somebody knew your resume, they'd pick you up from the bus stop, throw you in their car and hire you. Like there's never been a time to be more in vogue than Black. And I think any time in history than right now, every company's hiring a chief sustainability officer, chief diversity and inclusion officer. Every company. Could that be you? Whoever you is listening to that? Now it's popular to invest in a Black-owned business, to help a Black-owned business, or Latino or women or whatever, underserved. Everything's on reset, everything. So think about, if you're listening to this, you're not Joe Blow or Jane Schmo, you're a brand. Jane Schmo LLC, John Smith LLC. What are you putting out on social media? What's your brand look like? Are you walking through the airport with slippers on, pajamas, your hair in a bun, looking like, dang it, I'll bite you? That's your brand. Is somebody going to invest in that? Are you, can you not finish a sentence? Do you not read a book? This may be brutal and harsh, but this is what people say to you when they love you. Right. They tell you the truth, right? And the truth is, I wouldn't hire you. And I love you, right? But I wouldn't hire you, right? No one's going to hire you. Black people, it's not that Black people shouldn't do marijuana. We can't afford to. Right? Unless you are in the creative spaces and marijuana makes you more creative in the recording studio, you shouldn't be doing it because it dulls your senses, it dulls your brain, and you need to be as sharp as you can be because this world is not giving you a break. It's not cutting you a break. Haven't you noticed? You got to get up twice as early, stay up twice as late, work twice as hard, be twice as good to just get the opportunity everybody else has. So you got this moment right now where you can change 400 years of history in 2 years. You can create the next 100 years of the future in 10 years. Don't you want to be part of that? Don't you want to have a legacy? Of course you do. You die twice in this world, Brad. When you physically die and when someone mentions your name for the last time. Don't we want everybody listening to this for the world to say your name for time immortal? Of course you do. That's why you have children. That's why people have grandchildren and children. And they want the family to proliferate, right? Because that's their legacy. But there's also another legacy. It's about what you give, not what you get. I think that we're sitting in a moment now, man, and everybody's, whatever your dream is, it can come true right now. I'm living proof. I have a GED degree out of high school. Chris Rock calls it a good enough diploma. I was homeless at La Tierra Airport. Brad, you know that corner, that caddy corner. It was a little Italian restaurant sitting right there on the way to the airport. I lived in a Montero Jeep under a car cover for 6 months because I lost everything at 18 years old, and everybody wrote me off and said I would not amount to anything. But God don't make dirt. So I've been at the bottom. I've had a 400 credit score. I've flirted with bankruptcy. I've lost it all. I've been homeless. I've been derided. I've been disrespected. I've been written off. But God don't make dirt, and I'm still here. But you know what? Once you get through all that, nobody can hurt you. I take no for vitamins. You don't like me? It's okay. I like me. You not flowing with me? That's all right. That means your business plan is wrong, not mine. My business plan is working just fine. Black folks need a business plan for the 21st century. We should be enough with the trauma, enough with somebody else defining our agenda. You cannot have 48 million Black people trying to be 5,000 rappers, 5,000 pro basketball and football players, and 10,000 entertainers. The numbers don't work. The money is in engineers. You want to make sure you don't ever go broke? Be an engineer, mechanical engineer, computer engineer, anything. You'll never go broke. Engineering, the professions, management, real estate and finance is a third of this economy, Brad. Healthcare is a third of the economy. The professions is the other third. Music, where we all obsess on, and I love music, it's only $54 billion in a $20 trillion economy. That's infinitesimally small. It's like people are hiding the ball from us, and I'm tired of it. This is about wealth creation, everybody. Listen to me. Wealth creation. It gives you, all money is freedom. That's all it is. If I want to wear a t-shirt like I'm wearing right now in the middle of my business day, I can, because I'm the CEO.
Well, I think, John, for our folks, sometimes it has to get a little sexy, for them to the young ones to notice in this environment that we're in. And in the last 20 years, however many years you want to tack onto that, we've made other things sexy, because those were the examples, unfortunately, that a lot of us see, the athletes, the rappers, and nothing wrong with those professions. Those are admirable professions.
Absolutely.
And if you can rise to the top, God bless you.
God bless you.
But for a John Bryant to emerge at this point in time with the opportunities that are presented, the ones that you just laid out, I can't recall another time where it's been so good to be Black trying to be about something in business. So this is one of those moments. And if the system is changing, John, you're part of the reason why that system might change, because I really do feel like you're building something. It's not just words. There are tangible things, these deals that you're doing. We didn't have time to get to, like the Shopify deal. I know that's a huge deal. And as we're running out of time, I don't want to not mention that, because I think that's I read how you're going to also coach folks into business and teach them, give them lessons on entrepreneurship, not just give them $1 million check like a Shark Tank and say, your idea is a great idea, run with it. Our people need, a little bit more instruction than that. So as we're winding down, say what you like about that. And then I also want to point to, John, that, my brother-in-law happens to be white, and he leans a little bit right, but he watches you on CNBC religiously. And why I bring that up is because you have a unique ability to cross the aisle. When we're looking at such polarization politically, it makes you frustrated with the process. But as you have often said, point to a better, where does it work better? So we got to work this out here. But you have a unique skill, man, to be able to deal with the issues head on. And yes, sometimes it's tough love, but it's the love that you need to hear. But you also say things, man, that both sides are nodding their heads about, saying yes, but yet we can't seem to get our politicians to do that. So I don't want to lose you to office, but I don't know if you have some plans to run. And I just said a lot. I'm going to pause. We're going to wrap up. I want you to get the last word before I have a final question for you. So take it.
By the way, I'll always do a phase 2 or part 2 with you. So if you want to come back and do another one, we can happy to do it, because we're trying to cover a lot of ground. But, like I had 6 billionaires take me to a little place in 2019, middle of nowhere. I thought they were going to kill me. But they were just trying to ask me to run for president. The answer was no. I think that what we're trying to do right now is much more meaningful than me trying to be a politician. The world can change in an instant, but anybody thought I was doing this for political office? I'm in my 29th year at Operation Hope. Don't think I would have done it by now, right? So the first thing I'm doing is it's my brother Killer Mike said, we need a huge, legitimate, mainstream business success story that everybody else can go, okay, now I know I can do that. Right? I can't rap. I can't sing. I'm not a good basketball player. I told you.
What's the blueprint? Show me the blueprint.
Yeah. The only sport that I'm good at is motorsports, right? So I already told you. But we don't have a blueprint for mainstream success. Well, I want to give that. I think I can give that. That's my one contribution I can give. But it's taken everything I've gotten, and I can't get distracted by other things that, frankly, other people can do. Other people can be the elected officials and the community leaders and the civil rights leaders. We need all of that and reform for the police and police brutality and deal with public. All that's important. But this is my contribution. Black capitalists matter. That's my T-shirt. And I think this has you change this, you change everything else. They didn't get Al Capone for murder and mayhem and rape. They got him for tax evasion. Right? Under everything is money. We really don't have time for this conversation, unfortunately, because each one of these rabbit holes is a separate situation. To answer your question, cut a $130 million deal, 10-year deal with Shopify, second largest e-commerce company in America, to create 1 million new Black businesses in 10 years. In the last 6 months, we're already at 20,000 Black businesses and growing. And it's just pulsating. I got a note this morning from a big fraternity, Black fraternity. They want to sign on, make a commitment. So that's pulsating and growing. We've just signed a deal with Truist Bank, which is huge here on the East Coast. They're going half of their branches for Hope Inside. That's a $20 million deal. We just cut a deal with Wells Fargo to go into their platform. There's a deal that I cut with the CEO of Walmart that was announced 2 weeks ago for financial literacy for all. It's me, him, CEO of Delta, CEO of Disney, CEO of Walgreens, the sister, Roz Brewer, head of the NFL commissioner, head of the NBA commissioner, and somebody else I'm forgetting, Bank of America CEO Tony Ressler, the billionaire, to take financial literacy and embed it into the business plan of America. That's, I think, the civil rights issue of this generation. When I say I want to create a system, an economic system for our people, I'm not playing. And it takes just as much energy to succeed big as it does to succeed small. So why should anybody do anything small now? Like if I'm gonna fall on my face, it's gonna be a splat.
You're not going to fall, man. And there are going to be plenty of us to make sure that you don't. So, John, last thing, and thank you for illuminating those points. And there's so much to cover with you. I would love to have you back, man, if you have the time. My wife, though, wanted me to ask you this question because she has pointed this out. Command Central, that chair of yours.
Oh, that's funny.
Tell me about that, man.
That's funny.
Show us that.
Yeah. So this is a workstation called an Emperor Station, and it allows me to have 8 work streams at the same time. So I can do 8 different streams of work in 8 different disciplines at the same time. 3 across the screen, 2 on the side, and 3 here. So I stand up here to work, and here and here. And those are, if you can see it, it's 3 screens. And then I go here, I sit down, that comes down, the screen comes down, this lifts back up, the seat lifts back up for back support. And I can sit there for 12 hours without getting tired and work while looking at the news on what's going on in the world on TV. And I have a little on-air screen, a sign outside both doors, because so my wife and family don't just walk in with whatever's on their mind at that moment. I literally had to have a blinking on-air sign when I'm doing an interview like this. So I just turned the home office into a productivity center. And I just found it to be enormously rejuvenating. And it's designed around no noise.
Man, I love it. It's really supernatural, man, what you're able to do. And just want to wish you the best, John. And we're going to continue to to see big things coming from John Hope Bryant. And all we should be doing is trying to support you, John, in any way, shape, or form. And I appreciate the friendship. I appreciate the time. All the best to you, my brother. Thank you very much for joining us today. John Hope Bryant. So, folks, we are segueing here to How We Move with my dear friend, Ambassador Shabazz. What's happening, Ambassador? How you doing?
I'm great, but what a absorption is the word I can use in reference to listening to John Hope Bryant and his journey. And, I was in Los Angeles when he was emerging as well. And, watching him move, as he stated, well, I think that, in the early 90s when he was emerging, there was so much going on, as you all relate to during the program. And that's when I was there in Los Angeles. And he, as he stated, he said he did not think he was cool, but I was raised in and around all the socio-Britannica minded people, folks that moved like he moved, that thought like he thought, that were progressive and intentional and unyielding. And while he was a young man in the early 90s, he was, I don't say relentless in the negative, I mean relentless in the passionate of being informative, the young men and women that I saw around him, the collection of folks that were certainly present and emerging during the Rodney King trial. I mean, we talk about today's Gen Zs and what we went through last year, and people are, if they're too young, they have no clue of what we lived through back then. So his brilliance as it relates to socioeconomic development, sustenance, in that regard, I certainly want to have a conversation with him. I'm here in Louisville, Kentucky, as much of your audience knows, and in 2 days is the 5th memorial of Muhammad Ali. And this is a person that is known all over the world. But just last year, we had the Breonna Taylor year, the young lady who was murdered here. And people don't realize that they never really said Ali's name. And you want to say Ali came to the fore when he was her age. So we can't celebritize someone whose whole life was really about social change and or play his name safe when it would have been perhaps the healing and the bridge that we needed. So while his date of transition is June 3rd, her 28th birthday is June 5th. And we're going to try to make sure that this week is a very potent one, very engaging. And there are a number of things. This is called Muhammad Ali Festival, June is. And so during that time, it's really about the celebration of life and the contributions of life. And there's a documentary coming out this weekend. A number of people will walk through, when Muhammad passed away, 400,000 people from around the globe descended on this city. It already has 700,000, but it, as the 6th largest convention city, it actually found a way to host those people. But most of those people went to the hood, straight to the house, straight to those communities. And it's the same communities where we're building right now. Yeah, that's such a phenomenal project that you're involved in there in Louisville. And I can't wait to see it. And, it speaks to, your continued commitment, closeness to the family. Yeah. I know that I love them. Yeah, they love you back. And, as we're winding up and after speaking with John, of course, you referenced your dad several times. We're talking about Ali. And, it just makes me think about, in fact, I think John said this, that, you're not thinking about history when you're in the middle of the moment, right? And this past year, of course, caused us all to really stop and think, and hopefully just appreciate time, because it's everything just kind of became a little bit more clearly focused. But as I listen to someone like John talk, and I know what he's trying to do, and in the backdrop, the images of people like Muhammad Ali and your dad and Dr. King and Andrew Young, and when I think that maybe some part of our generation wasn't running our leg of the race as fast as we could, this alleviates that, because we are on purpose here. We are doing what, we were put here to do. It might not be as loud. It might not be as broadcasted, or we might not be as prominent, but each of us is doing, our part. And you with the Ali Foundation, that's a very important endeavor that you're a part of. And it just, to me, connects me emotionally to what John is doing. Exactly. And I know that we are running, our leg of the race. When I think about having been on the road over 40 years, going from lecture to lecture to lecture, I'll come in as a guest, but before me, there's always like a half hour of programming, and it'll acknowledge and give credit to and reference to, it could be a teacher, a coach, the lady down the block. And each of those persons, I used to always thought they were the only one doing what they were doing. And I would go to another city, and the same setup would take, it would be the reverend. It could be somebody's grandmother, over and over. And I used to always wonder, I was fortunate because I was moving from city to city, stage to stage, place to place, knowing that there was a large body of people in motion. And I always wondered, how do we enable all of those people doing good works to feel their connect the dots, their fraternity, their sorority, the network, that we're not in this alone. And so it's not about whose name you get to know. It's about just simply doing the work. Ali used to always reference that he didn't always feel like a boxer. He said the ring offered him the stage to do the rest of his work.
Thank you for that. I just want to acknowledge you because you do so much work quietly. I think that it's often easy to pay attention to folks that get the headlines and stay in the news, but what you do is just so on the ground, touching people, talking to people, even our relationship, quite honestly, you're accessible.
Yeah.
And you're accessible to a wide range of people. Too many hours probably in the day for you to go into the following day with enough rest and recuperation to.
Yeah, none did I regret. I mean, I'm limping and everything, and I have to make sure. I had to ask the young man today, can we stop through a McDonald's drive-through? That wouldn't be normal. I said to him, he just sent me an email saying, thanks for lunch. I said, next time it'll be with a knife and fork.
But I'm sure any lunch with you is worth it, whether it's a McDonald's drive-through or a sit-down lunch. So
yeah.
I'm looking forward to having one of those with you real soon. Ambassador Shabazz, thank you. Great to see you as always, and we'll be in touch real soon.
Same to you, and thanks for all that you're doing and giving these forums for people like John Hope Bryant and others so that more and more of your listening audience gets to know what's going on.
I appreciate that.
Corner Table Talk is hosted by Brad Johnson, produced by Brad and Linda Ailes Johnson. Theme music, Life Goes On by Bryce Vine. Executive producers, Omar Thompson, Andrew Kalb, and Ken Johnson. Find the Corner Table Talk podcast wherever you get your podcast. Follow, subscribe, rate, and leave a comment. Corner Table Talk is a Say It Loud Network production.